We have movement on the far left building. Engage
March
that target
19th,
now.
2004. Ramadi, Iraq.
Target bearing
Through
270.
his scope,
Adjusting for
Corporal
wind at 10
James
knots.
Mitchell
Send
watches
it.
the insurgent's head float in the crosshairs. He's made this shot 100 times in training. His finger tightens. The rifle cracks. But the bullet doesn't
Dad, I'm
land.
home.
It drifts, carried by invisible hands 3 feet wide of its mark. Within seconds,
Welcome back,
mortars
son.
scream down. 4 Marines die in the smoke. Mitchell survives, but something inside him shatters. The wind has just turned him into a killer of his own men. The crosshairs settle on the insurgent's chest. 812 meters away, a man in a dark dish dasha kneels beside a mortar tube, unaware he's about to die. "Wind call," Mitchell whispers. Lance Corporal Danny Ortega licks his finger, holds it up, squints through his spotting scope at the shimmering heat waves rising from the industrial district below. 3 to 5 miles per hour,
We have
left to
movement
right.
on the far left
Maybe
building.
gusting.
Engage that target
Maybe.
now.
That word again. That word that means everything and nothing. Mitchell's heart hammers against the rooftop concrete. Sweat runs down his temple, stings his eye. He blinks it away. His hands are steady. They're always steady, but his mind races through calculations. He's performed 1,000 times. Wind drift at 800 meters. 5 miles per hour equals 18 inches. 7 miles per hour equals 25. The difference between those numbers is the difference between mission success and, "You got the shot?" Ortega asks. Mitchell's finger moves to the trigger. "Yeah, I got it." He doesn't. The rifle kicks. The sound cracks across Ramadi like a whip. For one perfect, terrible moment, Mitchell sees it, the faint vapor trail of his bullet cutting through the superheated air, a ghostly ribbon that curves, bends, drifts right. 3 feet right. The insurgent doesn't fall. He jerks his head up, scanning for the source of the shot, then drops behind the parapet wall. "Fuck," Ortega breathes. "Fuck, he's..." The whistle comes before Ortega can finish. Then the world explodes. The first mortar lands 40 meters short, spraying the street below with concrete and rebar. Mitchell rolls away from the ledge, dragging his rifle. "Get down, everyone, down!" The second mortar hits the building next door. The third hits closer. The fourth. The concussion wave slams into Mitchell's chest like a fist. His ears ring. Dust chokes his throat. Someone's screaming on the radio, but the words are garbled, distant underwater. He tries to stand, but his legs won't work. Ortega grabs his collar, hauls him toward the stairwell. "Move, move, move." They stumble down 2 flights of concrete stairs. Below, in what used to be the factory floor, Marines scramble for cover. Corporal David Chen crouches behind a concrete pillar, shouting into his radio handset. Private First Class Marcus Williams drags ammunition cans toward the western wall. Lance Corporal Robert Hayes checks his rifle, his face pale but focused. Then the 5th mortar hits. It comes through the roof like the fist of God. Mitchell sees Chen look up, just a brief, confused glance at the ceiling, before the explosion tears him apart. The shockwave throws Mitchell backward. His head cracks against something hard. Everything goes white. When his vision clears, he's on his back, staring at a hole in the ceiling where sunlight streams through smoke. His ears ring with a high, endless whine. Someone's screaming. No, several people are screaming. Mitchell rolls onto his stomach. His hands find his rifle. He crawls forward toward the screaming, and that's when he sees Chen. What's left of Chen? The corporal's body lies twisted in a spreading pool of blood, his throat opened by shrapnel that carved through Kevlar and flesh like paper. His eyes are open, staring at nothing. His hand still grips the radio handset, blood dripping from the antenna. Mitchell stares. His mind refuses to process what he's seeing. This is Chen. Chen from Sacramento. Chen who makes terrible jokes. Chen who has a girlfriend back home named Lisa and shows everyone her picture at least twice a week. Chen who, "Medic, I need a fucking medic." The voice snaps Mitchell back. He turns. Across the floor, Sergeant Michael Torres kneels beside Marcus Williams. The private's legs are gone below the knees, severed by the same blast that killed Chen. Blood pumps from the stumps in rhythmic spurts. Williams stares down at where his legs used to be, his face empty of everything except confusion. "I can't," Williams whispers. "I can't feel my feet." Torres presses field dressings against the stumps, but the blood won't stop. His hands are shaking. "You're okay, Williams. You're okay. Medic's coming. Medic's coming." But the medic isn't coming fast enough. Mitchell can see it in Torres's eyes, the knowledge that no amount of pressure, no amount of gauze, will stop what's happening. Williams's face goes gray. His breathing turns shallow, rapid. His eyes find Mitchell's. "Did we get him?" Williams asks. His voice sounds far away. "Did you get the shot?" Mitchell's mouth opens. No words come out. Williams's eyes close. His chest stops moving. "No," Torres says. "No, no, no." He starts chest compressions, counting out loud, his voice cracking. 1, 2, 3, 4. Someone pulls Torres away. A Navy corpsman takes over, but Mitchell can see it's too late. The corpsman works for 90 seconds, then sits back on his heels, shaking his head. The mortars stop. The silence that follows is worse than the explosions. Mitchell stands. His legs feel like water. He walks past Torres, who sits with his back against the wall, staring at his bloody hands. He walks past the corpsman who's covering Williams's body with a poncho liner. He walks past Ortega, who tries to grab his arm. "Mitchell, wait." He doesn't wait. He climbs back up to the rooftop. The sun burns overhead. The wind still blows. Down in the industrial district, nothing moves. The insurgents are gone, disappeared into Ramadi's maze of streets and buildings. Mitchell picks up his rifle. He looks through the scope at the rooftop where the mortar team had been. Empty. He adjusts the scope, scanning left-right, searching for movement, searching for anything. Nothing. He lowers the rifle. His hands are trembling now, not from fear but from something else. Something that feels like rage and grief and shame all mixed together, burning in his chest like acid. He missed. He had the shot. He had the training, the equipment, the experience. He did everything right. He calculated the wind, adjusted his scope, controlled his breathing, squeezed the trigger exactly the way his instructors taught him. Everything by the book. And Chen is dead. Williams is dead. Because he missed. "Mitchell." He turns. Captain James Novak stands in the stairwell doorway, his face covered in dust and blood that isn't his. The captain's jaw is tight, his eyes hard. "Sir?" "What happened?" The question hangs in the air between them. Mitchell knows what Novak wants: a simple explanation, a tactical assessment, something that can be written in an after-action report and filed away. But there is no simple explanation. "I took the shot at 812 meters, Mitchell says. His voice sounds mechanical, empty. "Wind estimation was 3 to 5 miles per hour left to right. I compensated accordingly. The shot missed by approximately 3 feet right." "Wind estimation," Novak repeats. "You estimated?" "Yes, sir. That's doctrine. Visual mirage reading, atmospheric pressure analysis, vegetation movement." "I know the doctrine, Corporal." Novak steps onto the rooftop. His boots crunch on debris. "What I want to know is how 4 of my Marines are dead because you couldn't judge wind." The words hit harder than the mortar blast. Mitchell feels something crack inside his chest. "Sir, the wind must have been gusting higher than—" "Must have been." Novak's voice rises. "Must have been. You're telling me you don't know? You took a shot without knowing?" "That's impossible, sir. Wind changes. We do our best to—" "Your best." Novak takes another step forward. He's not yelling now. His voice has gone quiet, which somehow makes it worse. Chen had a wedding planned for June. Williams was 19 years old. Hayes has a daughter he's never met. Torres. Novak's voice catches. He stops, breathes, continues. "Torres had 2 kids and a wife who's 7 months pregnant. Your best killed them." Mitchell says nothing. What can he say? It's true. Novak stares at him for a long moment, then turns away. Get off my rooftop. I don't want to see you on Overwatch again. Sir. That's an order, Corporal. Mitchell watches Novak descend the stairs. Below, he can hear voices radio chatter, shouted commands, the sound of a medevac helicopter coming in. The machinery of war grinding forward, indifferent to 4 more bodies added to its count. He looks down at his rifle. M40A3. 43 inches long, 17 pounds with scope and bipod. Maximum effective range 1,000 meters. First shot hit probability at 800 meters in 5-mile-per-hour crosswind, 34%, according to Quantico's data. 34%. A coin flip would give better odds. Mitchell sits down hard, his back against the parapet wall. The sun beats down. The wind blows. Somewhere in the distance, another gunfight crackles, small arms fire, someone else's war. He closes his eyes, but immediately sees Chen's face, Williams's confusion, Torres's bloody hands. He opens his eyes. That's when he sees it, really sees it, for the first time. On the wall across from him, a bullet impact crater. The round must have hit during the chaos sparked off the concrete. And leading up to it, burned into the dust-covered wall like a photograph, is the faint trace of a vapor trail. The bullet's path through humid air made visible for a fraction of a second before it disappeared. Mitchell stares at the trace. It curves. Not straight, not the clean ballistic arc from the textbooks. It curves, bends, follows the invisible currents of air that carried it off target. The bullet knows, he thinks. The bullet flies through the wind. It feels every gust, every shift, every change in pressure. The bullet knows what we're guessing at. What if we could see what the bullet sees? The thought is absurd. Impossible. Bullets travel at 3,000 feet per second. No human eye can track that. No camera can catch it. The scientists at Quantico spent millions trying to develop real-time wind measurement systems and concluded it couldn't be done. Dr. Robert Williams, the Marine Corps' chief ballistics expert, literally wrote the paper titled, "The Impossibility of Real-Time Downrange Wind Calculation." But Mitchell keeps staring at that vapor trail burned into the wall, keeps thinking about Chen, about Williams, about 4 men who are dead because nobody can measure what the bullet already knows. Ortega finds him an hour later still sitting against the wall. Hey. Ortega sits down beside him. Heard Novak lit you up. Mitchell doesn't respond. Wasn't your fault, man. Wind's a bitch. Always has been. Every sniper misses shots. That's just 3 to 5 miles per hour. Mitchell interrupts. His voice is flat. You called 3 to 5. Yeah, and what if it was 6? What if at ground level it was 5, but at 400 meters downrange it was 7? What if there was a gust we didn't see? What if everything we're doing, the mirage, reading, the finger-licking, all of it, is just guessing, dressed up as science? Ortega is quiet for a moment. It's the best we have. It's not good enough. Mitchell. 4 men are dead because it's not good enough. Mitchell turns to look at Ortega. His eyes are red-rimmed, haunted. How many shots do we miss? Not just us, all of us, all the snipers in Iraq. Ortega shifts uncomfortably. I don't know, maybe 66%. I looked it up. At ranges over 600 meters, we miss 2 out of every 3 shots, 2 out of 3 Danny, and every miss gives them time to shoot back. Mitchell's hands clench into fists. How many Marines have died because we can't measure wind? You can't measure wind, nobody can. It's chaos. It changes every second. The bullet measures it. Ortega blinks. What? The bullet. It flies through the wind. It gets pushed by every gust, every current. The bullet knows exactly what the wind is doing. Mitchell points at the vapor trail on the wall. Look, you can see it. The path curves. If we could measure that curve, we could calculate the wind. Ortega follows his finger, stares at the faint trace. You're talking about tracking a bullet moving 3,000 feet per second. Yeah. That's impossible. Maybe. Mitchell stands up, picks up his rifle. Or maybe it's just impossible for the people who have been trying. He walks to the stairwell, then pauses looking back at Ortega. How many more, Danny? How many more Marines die because we keep saying it's impossible? Ortega has no answer. That night, Mitchell lies in his bunk staring at the plywood ceiling of the barracks. Around him, other Marines sleep or try to. Someone snores. Someone else mutters in a dream. The generators hum their endless mechanical lullaby. Mitchell doesn't sleep. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees the shot. The crosshairs centered. The trigger squeeze. The bullet drifting. Chen's throat opening. William's legs gone. Over and over and over. At 0300 hours, he gives up. He pulls out his notebook, the same green field notebook every Marine carries, and starts writing. Not a letter home, not a journal entry, an equation. If bullet drift equals 18 inches at 5 miles per hour, then drift divided by wind speed equals. He stops, scratches. Out the line starts again. If vapor trail curve is visible for 0.5 seconds, and bullet travels 3,000 feet per second, then curve length equals... The math makes no sense. He doesn't have the training for this. He barely passed algebra in high school. But he keeps writing anyway, filling page after page with half-formed calculations and sketched diagrams of bullet paths, wind vectors, curve measurements. Ortega wakes at 0430, sees Mitchell's bunk empty, finds him sitting outside in the darkness, still writing by flashlight. You okay? Mitchell looks up. His eyes are hollow-shadowed. I'm going to fix this. Fix what, wind? Mitchell closes the notebook. I'm going to figure out how to measure it. Not guess. Measure. Ortega sits down beside him. For a long moment, neither speaks. Then Ortega says quietly, You know that sounds crazy, right? Yeah. You know Quantico's been trying to solve this for years, that they have PhDs and millions of dollars, and they all say it's impossible. Yeah. You know you're just a corporal with a high school diploma who fixes air conditioners. Mitchell finally looks at Ortega. A faint, bitter smile crosses his face. Yeah, I know. Good. Ortega nods once. Just wanted to make sure you understood how completely fucking insane this is before you start. I already started. Ortega looks at the notebook in Mitchell's hands, at the pages covered in desperate calculations and impossible dreams. He sighs. Then I guess I'm helping, because you're going to need someone to tell you when you've really lost it. Mitchell's rotation ends 7 weeks later. On May 7, 2004, he boards a C-130 at Al Asad Air Base. His sea bag packed, his rifle cleaned, and turned in. Most of the Marines around him are laughing, joking, relieved to be going home. Mitchell stares out the window as Iraq shrinks below him. He thinks about Chen, about Williams, about Hayes and Torres, about the 66% of shots that miss, about the wind that kills without mercy or reason. And he makes a promise to 4 dead men. I'm going to solve this, not someday, now, because somewhere down there another Marine is taking another shot, and I fucking refuse to let him miss. The C-130's engines roar. The desert disappears into clouds. The war continues without him. But James Mitchell's war, his war against the invisible enemy that no one can see and everyone fears, has just begun. Tennessee in May smells like cut grass and motor oil. Mitchell's father's repair shop sits on Route 11, just outside Knoxville, a cinder block building with a corrugated metal roof and a hand-painted sign that reads, Mitchell & Son, HVAC. The sign is optimistic. Mitchell hasn't worked there in 4 years. His father, Robert Mitchell, stands in the gravel driveway when the taxi pulls up. He's 58, lean and weathered, wearing the same Carhartt coveralls he's worn for 30 years. He doesn't hug his son. They're not that kind of family. Instead, he nods once, picks up Mitchell's sea bag, and says, "You look like hell." "Thanks, Dad." "You eating?" "When I remember to." Robert grunts, carries the sea bag inside. Mitchell follows his eyes, adjusting to the dimness of the shop. It looks exactly as he remembers: cluttered workbenches, shelves lined with copper fittings and refrigerant cans, the perpetual smell of Freon and coffee. On the wall, a calendar from 2003 shows Miss February in a bikini holding a pipe wrench. Someone drew a mustache on her. "You staying long?" Robert asks. "Don't know yet." "You got 2 weeks leave, right?" "Then what? Back to Iraq?" Mitchell sets down his bag. "Maybe. Or maybe I get out. Haven't decided." Robert looks at him, then really looks, and something in his expression softens. "Your mother wants you to come by for dinner. She's making pot roast." "Okay." "She's worried about you." "I know." "I am too." Mitchell meets his father's eyes. For a moment, neither speaks. Then Robert clears his throat, turns away. "Well, if you need work to keep busy, AC unit on the Henderson's roof is acting up. Could use a hand." "Yeah, sure." They drive to the Hendersons' house in Robert's truck, a 1987 Ford F-150 with 200,000 miles and a transmission that grinds between second and third. Mitchell stares out the window at familiar roads, familiar trees, familiar everything. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. The Hendersons live in a ranch house with a flat roof. The AC unit sits on top, accessible by ladder. Mitchell and his father climb up tools, clanking. The sun beats down, not desert hot, but hot enough to make sweat. Robert opens the access panel. "Compressor's overheating. Probably low on refrigerant. Check the lines for leaks." Mitchell kneels, runs his hands along the copper lines. His mind is elsewhere. He sees Chen's face, Williams's legs, the vapor trail curving through Iraqi air. "You find anything?" Robert asks. Mitchell blinks. "What?" "Leaks." "You checking for leaks?" "Yeah, sorry." He focuses, feels along the joints, the connections. Nothing obvious. "Seems tight." "Then it's probably the compressor valve." Robert hands him a pressure gauge. "Check it." Mitchell attaches the gauge. The needle swings into the red zone pressure too high, which means the refrigerant isn't flowing properly, which means somewhere in the system something is blocked or broken. He starts to explain this to his father, but then stops, because something else has caught his attention. The wind. It's blowing across the rooftop, not hard, maybe 5 miles per hour. And where it hits the AC unit's exhaust vent, it creates a visible disturbance, a shimmer, a ripple in the hot air rising from the compressor. Mitchell can see it, the wind made visible by temperature differential. "What?" Robert asks, watching him. "The air." Mitchell points. "You can see it, where the wind hits the exhaust." "Yeah." So, Mitchell doesn't answer. His mind is racing. If temperature makes air visible, and bullets create temperature changes as they pass through air friction compression heat, then the vapor trail isn't just condensation. It's a thermal signature, a visible record of the bullet's interaction with atmosphere. And if you can see it, you can measure it. "I need a camera," Mitchell says suddenly. Robert frowns. "What?" "A video camera. You got one." "Your mother has that little digital thing she uses for key." "No. I need something that can film fast, high speed, slow motion." "What the hell are you talking about?" Mitchell climbs down the ladder, his hands moving fast now, his voice urgent. "Bullets. In Iraq. We can't measure wind, so we miss shots and people die. But the bullet knows the wind. It flies through it. And when it does, it leaves a vapor trail. You can see it for maybe half a second. If I could film that trail, measure how much it curves, I could calculate the wind speed." Robert stares at him. "You want to film bullets?" "Yes." "To measure wind?" "Yes." "James, that's—" Robert stops himself, changes course. "How fast do bullets fly?" "About 3,000 feet per second." "And you think you can film something moving that fast with a camera?" I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I have to try. Mitchell's voice cracks slightly. He swallows, steadies himself. Dad, 4 guys on my team died because I couldn't measure wind. 4. And there are snipers all over Iraq missing shots every single day, and Marines dying because of it. If there's even a chance, even a tiny chance that this could work, I have to try. Robert looks at his son for a long moment. Then he pulls out his wallet, counts out $60, hands it over. Pawn shop on Magnolia Avenue usually has cameras. Go see what they got. Dad, I can't. Yeah, you can. Your mother and I put away some money for you, for when you got back. Was going to give it to you for a car or a deposit on an apartment or something useful. Robert's mouth quirks in something that might be a smile. Filming bullets is crazy, but crazy seems to be what you need right now. Mitchell takes the money. His throat is tight. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't figured out if it works. The pawn shop smells like cigarette smoke and desperation. A bell jingles when Mitchell walks in. Behind the counter, a man with a gray beard and a stained Grateful Dead shirt looks up from a magazine. Help you. Cameras, Mitchell says. Video cameras. What do you have? The man gestures to a shelf. 6 cameras sit there, ranging from an ancient VHS camcorder the size of a shoebox to a newer digital model that probably cost $2,000 when it was new. The price tags tell a different story now. $40, $60, $85. Mitchell picks up the digital one. Sony Handycam DCR TRV11. He reads the specs printed on a faded sticker. 30 frames per second, digital zoom night vision mode. 30 frames per second means each frame captures 1/30th of a second. A bullet traveling 3,000 feet per second covers 100 feet in that time. By the time the camera sees it, the bullet is already gone. That one's a nice unit, the bearded man says. Works good. Got a cracked viewfinder, but the recording still. Do you have anything faster? Mitchell interrupts. Anything that films at a higher frame rate. Faster like for sports. Like for... Yeah, sports. The man scratches his beard thinking. Might have something in the back. Guy brought in a bunch of equipment from a TV station that went under. Hang on. He disappears through a curtain. Mitchell waits, his heart pounding. This is stupid. This is absolutely stupid. He's standing in a pawn shop in Tennessee trying to solve a problem that Quantico's best engineers couldn't solve with millions of dollars. He should get back in his father's truck, go eat his mother's pot roast, finish his leave, and go back to being a sniper who misses shots and lives with the guilt. But Chen is dead. Williams is dead. Hayes and Torres are dead. And somewhere in Iraq right now another sniper is lining up another shot. The bearded man returns carrying a black case. Found this. Panasonic AG DVX100. Broadcast camera. Does 60 frames per second in certain modes. Guy wanted $800 for it when he brought it in. I'll let it go for $250. Mitchell opens the case. The camera is professional-grade heavy with manual focus rings and audio inputs, and a dozen buttons he doesn't understand. He turns it over in his hands. $250. He has 60. I can give you 60 now, Mitchell says. And I can work off the rest. Whatever you need. I fix air conditioners. I can do carpentry. I'll clean your shop. Whatever. The man looks at him for a long moment. You military, Marine Corps. Just got back from Iraq. My son's in the Army, Fort Hood. The man is quiet, then nods once. Take it. Pay me when you can. I'll pay you, I promise. I know you will. Marines don't break promises. The man closes the case, hands it over. What are you filming anyway? Mitchell hesitates, then tells the truth. Bullets. I'm trying to measure wind by filming bullet vapor trails. The man blinks. That's the craziest goddamn thing I've heard all week. Yeah. Good luck with it. Mitchell carries the camera out to his father's truck. His hands are shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Hope. Maybe. Or maybe just the adrenaline that comes from committing to an insane idea. That evening after pot roast and his mother's careful questions that he mostly dodges, Mitchell goes out to his father's shop. He sets up the camera on a workbench, reads through the manual by flashlight. 60 frames per second. Not fast enough to see a bullet in flight, not even close, but maybe fast enough to see the vapor trail it leaves behind. Maybe. He needs a laser pointer to mark distances. He needs a way to mount the camera stable. He needs a shooting range. He needs a rifle. He needs ammunition. He needs... The shop door opens. Robert walks in carrying 2 beers, hands one to Mitchell. Thanks. They drink in silence for a moment. Then Robert says, "You know this probably won't work." "Yeah." "You know even if it does work, the Marine Corps probably won't listen to you." "Yeah." "You know you're going to spend the next 2 weeks, maybe longer, chasing something that every expert says is impossible." Mitchell takes a long drink. "Yeah, I know all that." "Good." Robert sits down on a stool. "So what do you need?" For the next 3 hours, they make a list. A plan. Mitchell draws diagrams in his field notebook, camera angles, shooting positions, measurement techniques. Robert adds practical suggestions. Use the gravel pit off County Road 14 for testing. Borrow Jimmy Patterson's hunting rifle. Make a camera mount from PVC pipe and duct tape. At midnight, Robert stands to leave. At the door, he pauses. "Your mother thinks I should tell you to let this go. Get some rest. Process what happened over there. See a counselor." "What do you think?" Robert looks at his son. "I think you're trying to save lives. And I think the world needs more people who can't sleep at night because they give a damn." He opens the door. "Shop's yours as long as you need it. Just clean up when you're done." The first test happens 3 days later at the gravel pit, an abandoned quarry that locals use for target shooting. Mitchell sets up the camera on a tripod made from PVC pipe and duct tape. 20 yards downrange, he places a target. He's borrowed a .308 hunting rifle from his father's friend Jimmy and bought 50 rounds of ammunition from Walmart. Danny Ortega is there too. He flew in from San Diego on his own dime, took 3 days leave. "You think I'm letting you do this alone?" Ortega said when he showed up at Mitchell's door. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't blow your own head off." Now Ortega lies prone with the rifle while Mitchell adjusts the camera. The plan is simple. Fire the rifle at an angle so the bullet passes through the camera's field of view. The vapor trail, if there is one, if it's visible, if the camera can catch it, should appear as a faint line. "Ready," Mitchell calls. "Ready. Fire." Ortega squeezes the trigger. The rifle cracks. Mitchell watches through the camera viewfinder. He sees nothing. Just target and gravel and empty air. They try again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. After 20 rounds, Mitchell sits back frustrated. The vapor trails are too faint, too fast, or the camera isn't sensitive enough, or the angle is wrong, or all of the above. "Maybe it needs to be hotter," Ortega suggests. "More humidity. Make the trail more visible." "It's Tennessee in May. How much more humid do you want?" "I don't know, man. I'm just..." Ortega stops, looks at Mitchell. "You okay?" Mitchell doesn't answer. Because he's not okay. He's been running on 3 hours of sleep a night and black coffee and the desperate need to fix something that maybe can't be fixed. And now, after 3 days of work and planning and hope, he's sitting in a gravel pit staring at a camera that shows nothing but empty air. "This was stupid," Mitchell says quietly. "I'm chasing ghosts." "Hey." Ortega sits down beside him. "We've fired 20 rounds. Give it more time." "How much time? I've got 8 days of leave left. Then what? I go back to Iraq and keep missing shots. Keep getting people killed." "You didn't kill." "Yes, I did." Mitchell's voice hardens. "I pulled the trigger. I missed. They died. That's how it works." Ortega is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "You remember Staff Sergeant Hendricks? The guy who taught us wind reading at sniper school?" "Yeah." He told me once that he misses about half his long-range shots. Half. And he's been doing this for 15 years. He said you learn to live with it. Because wind is chaos, and chaos can't be controlled. Fuck that, Mitchell says. Fuck living with it. Fuck accepting that Marines die because we can't measure something bullets fly through every single day. He stands up, starts adjusting the camera. We're trying again. Different angle. Closer to the muzzle. Maybe the trail is more visible right after the bullet leaves the barrel. They shoot 30 more rounds. Nothing. The sun sets. Mosquitoes come out. They set up work lights, keep shooting. Ortega starts to suggest they call it a night, but Mitchell is already loading another magazine. The 53rd round is the one that changes everything. Mitchell sees it through the viewfinder, a faint, ghostly ribbon hanging in the air for maybe a quarter of a second. It's barely visible, more suggestion than substance. But it's there. Stop, Mitchell says. Don't move. Don't fucking move. What did you... I saw it. I saw the trail. Mitchell's hands shake as he rewinds the camera, plays back the footage frame by frame. There. Frame 47. A faint white streak angling across the screen, curving slightly as it travels. Ortega looks over his shoulder. Holy shit! It's not much, but it's there. Mitchell's voice rises. It's actually there. We can see it. They watch the frame over and over. The trail is faint, so faint it's almost invisible but measurable. Mitchell can see the curve, the drift. With the right calculations, the right measurements, he can determine how far the bullet moved from its original trajectory. And if he knows the distance and the bullet's velocity, he can calculate the wind speed that caused that drift. It's possible. It's actually possible. We need more shots, Mitchell says. We need to prove it works consistently. We need... A car pulls up at the edge of the gravel pit. Blue lights flash. A sheriff's deputy gets out, hand on his holster. Evening, gentlemen. We got a call about gunfire. Mitchell explains they're testing equipment. They're Marines, they have permission from the quarry owner. The deputy listens, nods, but says they need to pack it up for the night. Local noise ordinance. They load the equipment into Robert's truck. Mitchell's hands won't stop shaking. Not from fear. From excitement. From the realization that he's just proven something that everyone said was impossible. This is going to work, he tells Ortega as they drive back. It's actually going to work. Maybe. We've got one shot on camera. We need hundreds to prove it's reliable. So we'll get hundreds. We'll test it every day. We'll refine the technique. We'll... Mitchell. Ortega's voice is gentle but firm. You've got 7 days left. Then you're back in. And even if you prove this works, you still have to convince the Marine Corps to use it. That's going to be harder than filming bullets. Mitchell knows Ortega is right. But for the first time since Ramadi, since Chen's death, since the shot that missed, he feels something other than guilt and rage. He feels hope. Over the next 6 days, they run 283 test shots. They refine the technique, optimal distance, camera angle, lighting conditions. They discover that vapor trails are most visible in humid morning air. They learn that different ammunition produces different trail densities. They build a measurement system using a laser pointer and trigonometry to calculate bullet drift from the camera footage. By the end of the week, they can measure wind speed within 3 miles per hour. Not perfect, not as accurate as professional anemometers. But close. Close enough to turn a guess into a measurement. Close enough to save lives. On his last night home, Mitchell sits in his father's shop surrounded by notebooks filled with calculations, videotapes filled with bullet trails and equipment cobbled together from pawn shops and hardware stores. His leave ends tomorrow. He flies back to California, then to Iraq. Robert finds him there at 2 a.m. You should sleep. Can't. Robert sits down. For a long moment, neither speaks. Then Robert says, You really think this will work in combat? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. Mitchell's voice is exhausted. The camera's too big, too fragile. It needs humidity to work. It needs time to set up. It's a laboratory experiment, not a combat system. But you proved the concept. Yeah, I proved the concept. Mitchell looks at his father. And now I have to convince the Marine Corps that a corporal with a pawn shop camera knows something their PhDs don't. You're going to try anyway. It's not a question. Yeah, Mitchell says. I'm going to try anyway. Because somewhere in Iraq, another Marine is about to take another shot. And Mitchell refuses. He absolutely fucking refuses to let that Marine become him. To let that Marine carry Chen's death. William's death, the weight of missing when it mattered most. The bullet knows the wind. Now James Mitchell knows it too. And that knowledge, fragile and incomplete as it is, might be enough to change everything. The flight back to California takes 6 hours. Mitchell sits in the middle seat of a commercial airliner wedged between a businessman reading spreadsheets and a college student sleeping with headphones on. In his carry-on bag, wrapped in a towel for protection, sits the Panasonic camera and 3 videotapes containing 283 bullet shots. His field notebook now filled with equations, diagrams, and calculations that would make his high school math teacher weep rests on his lap. He hasn't slept in 32 hours. Every time he closes his eyes, his mind races through the presentation he's planning. He'll show the footage to his company commander first, then maybe the battalion commander. Someone will see what he's proven. Someone will understand. Ortega meets him at San Diego International Airport. They drive to Camp Pendleton in Ortega's beat-up Honda Civic, the camera equipment rattling in the trunk. You nervous? Ortega asks. Terrified. Good. You should be. You're about to tell the Marine Corps they've been doing wind estimation wrong for 100 years. Mitchell stares out the window at the California highway. What if they don't listen? Then we try again. What if they order me to stop? Ortega doesn't answer right away. Then he says, You really think this is worth getting court-martialed over? 4 Marines are dead because of bad wind calls. How many more die if I don't try? That's not an answer. Mitchell turns to look at him. Yes, it is. They arrive at Camp Pendleton at 1400 hours on June 3, 2004. Mitchell reports to his platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Marcus Wade, a brick wall of a man with 20 years in and a face that's forgotten how to smile. Welcome back, Mitchell. How was leave? Good, Staff Sergeant. Rested? Yes, Staff Sergeant. Wade looks at him for a long moment. You look like shit, but that's normal for guys coming back. Report to the armory, check your gear, and be ready for training cycle Monday morning. Staff Sergeant, I need to speak with the company commander. Wade's eyes narrow. About what? About wind estimation. I've been working on a new technique and A new technique. Wade's voice goes flat. You, a corporal with 3 years in, have developed a new technique. Yes, Staff Sergeant. For wind estimation, the thing that PhD ballistics experts can't figure out. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Wade stares at him, then laughs a short, harsh bark. Jesus Christ, you're serious. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Mitchell, I don't know what you did on leave, but you need to get your head back in the game. We deploy again in 8 weeks. I need shooters who are focused, not... Staff Sergeant, please. Just give me 10 minutes with the CO. If he thinks it's bullshit, I'll drop it. But if there's even a chance this could save lives. There isn't. Wade's voice hardens. You know how I know because Quantico's been trying to solve real-time wind measurement for a decade. They've spent millions, and they all concluded it's impossible. You think you're smarter than them. Mitchell's jaw tightens. No, Staff Sergeant. But I think I'm more desperate. Something in Wade's expression shifts. He studies Mitchell's face, the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the haunted look that never quite goes away. This about Ramadi? Wade asks quietly. Mitchell doesn't answer, doesn't need to. Wade sighs, pulls out his radio. Fine, I'll get you 10 minutes. But Mitchell, when the CO shuts you down, and will you drop this? Understood. Yes, Staff Sergeant. Captain James Novak, the same captain who ordered Mitchell off the rooftop in Ramadi, sits behind a gray metal desk in an office that smells like coffee and bureaucracy. When Mitchell walks in carrying the camera case, Novak's expression doesn't change. "Corporal Mitchell, Staff Sergeant Wade says you have something urgent to discuss." "Yes, sir." Mitchell sets the case on the desk. "I've developed a method for measuring downrange wind speed using vapor trail analysis." Novak blinks. "Vapor trail analysis?" "Yes, sir. During my leave, I constructed a high-speed camera system that can capture bullet vapor trails and calculate wind speed based on trajectory deviation. I've run 283 test shots with an average accuracy of—" "Stop." Novak holds up a hand. "You're telling me that you, a corporal, spent your leave building a system to measure wind?" "Yes, sir." "The same wind that killed 4 Marines in Ramadi because you couldn't estimate it correctly." The words hit like a punch. Mitchell's voice stays steady. "Yes, sir. That's exactly why I built it." Novak leans back in his chair. "Do you have any idea how many resources the Marine Corps has invested in solving this problem? How many scientists, engineers, and ballistics experts have tried and failed?" "Yes, sir. Dr. Robert Williams at Quantico wrote a paper in 2001 declaring real-time wind measurement impossible." "And you think you've proven him wrong?" "With what, a camera from a pawn shop?" "I'm not claiming to have solved it completely, sir, but I've proven the concept works. If I could demonstrate—" "No." Novak's voice is flat. "Absolutely not." Mitchell's stomach drops. "Sir, if you would just look at the footage." Mitchell listened to me very carefully. Novak stands, walks around the desk. "I understand what you're trying to do. I understand you feel responsible for what happened in Ramadi. But this—" he gestures at the camera case. "This is not how the Marine Corps innovates. We have procedures, protocols, chains of command. You don't get to just invent something in your garage and expect us to—" "4 Marines died, sir." "I know they did. I was there. They died because we're using 19th century wind estimation techniques in 21st century combat. We're asking snipers to guess at something that determines whether their shots hit or miss, whether their teammates live or die. And we're telling them it's good enough." Mitchell's voice rises. "It's not good enough, sir. Not when Marines are dying." Novak's jaw tightens. "You're out of line, Corporal." "Yes, sir. I'm aware." They stare at each other. The office is silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and distant sounds of the base outside. Finally, Novak says, "You have 10 seconds to convince me not to write you up for insubordination." Mitchell takes a breath. "Sir, what if I'm right? What if this actually works? Can you afford not to look?" Novak is quiet for a long moment. Then he sits back down. "Show me." Mitchell sets up the camera, connects it to the office television. His hands shake as he cues up the footage. Novak watches in silence as bullet after bullet appears on screen, each leaving a faint vapor trail that curves, drifts, bends. "The curve is the wind," Mitchell explains. "By measuring the deviation over a known distance and factoring in bullet velocity, we can calculate wind speed within 3 miles per hour. It's not perfect, but it's better than guessing." The footage ends. Novak stares at the screen. "This is real?" he asks. "This isn't edited or manipulated." "It's real, sir. I have 283 shots documented. I can show you the calculations. How long does it take to set up?" "Right now about 5 minutes, but with refinement maybe 2. "And it only works in humid conditions." "Mostly. Dry air produces fainter trails." Novak nods slowly. Then he picks up his phone. "Get me Colonel Rains at Scout Sniper School. Tell him it's urgent." Mitchell's heart pounds. "Sir, if this works, and that's a big if, it needs to be evaluated by people who actually know ballistics. Not me. Not you." Novak looks at Mitchell. "But Mitchell, you need to understand something. If you're wrong, if this is just desperation masquerading as science, you're going to burn every bridge you have. The Marine Corps doesn't reward people who waste senior officers' time. I understand, sir. I hope you do, because in about 3 days, you're either going to be a hero or a punchline. The summons arrives on June 8, 2004. Mitchell is ordered to report to the Scout Sniper School at Marine Corps Base, Quantico, Virginia, on June 14th for equipment evaluation and technical review. The order is signed by Colonel David Rains and countersigned by Dr. Robert Williams, Senior Ballistics Analyst, Marine Corps Systems Command. Dr. Robert Williams, the man who literally wrote the paper declaring what Mitchell is trying to do impossible. You're fucked, Ortega says when Mitchell shows him the orders. Williams is going to tear you apart. Probably. He's going to make an example of you, show everyone what happens when enlisted guys try to play scientist. Maybe. And you're going to go anyway. Yeah. Ortega shakes his head. You're either the bravest guy I know or the stupidest. Can't it be both? The flight to Virginia takes 5 hours. Mitchell doesn't sleep. He reviews his notes, his calculations, his prepared remarks. He knows every number, every measurement, every frame of footage. He knows it won't be enough. Williams has a PhD from MIT. Mitchell has a high school diploma and a camera held together with duct tape. But he also has Chen's death, Williams's death, Hayes and Torres. He has 4 bodies that won't let him quit. June 14th, 2004 arrives clear and hot. Mitchell stands outside Building 1466 at Quantico, a nondescript brick structure that houses the Scout Sniper School. His dress uniform is immaculate, his ribbons straight, his shoes polished to mirrors. He carries the camera case in one hand and his field notebook in the other. Inside, a Lance Corporal directs him to a conference room on the 2nd floor. They're waiting for you, Corporal. Mitchell climbs the stairs. Each step feels like walking toward an execution. He reaches the conference room, takes a breath, and knocks. Enter. The room contains 6 people. Colonel Rains sits at the head of the table, a lean man in his 50s with gray hair and the flat eyes of someone who's seen combat. Beside him sits Major Karen Hughes from the warfighting lab. 3 other officers Mitchell doesn't recognize occupy the remaining chairs. And at the far end of the table, reviewing a stack of papers with a red pen, sits Dr. Robert Williams. He's younger than Mitchell expected, maybe 45, with thinning brown hair and glasses that reflect the fluorescent lights. He wears a polo shirt with the Marine Corps Systems Command logo. He doesn't look up when Mitchell enters. Corporal Mitchell, Colonel Rains says. Take a seat. Mitchell sits, places the camera case on the table, opens his notebook. Before we begin, Rains continues, I want to be clear about what this is. This is not a tribunal. This is not a disciplinary hearing. This is an evaluation of a claim you've made regarding wind measurement technology. Dr. Williams is here as our ballistics expert. The other officers are here as technical observers. You will present your findings. We will ask questions. Then we will determine if further investigation is warranted. Clear. Yes, sir? Good. You have 30 minutes. Begin. Mitchell stands. His legs feel like water. He opens the camera case, pulls out the first videotape. On May 15, 2004, I began testing a hypothesis that bullet vapor trails contain measurable information about downrange wind conditions. Using a Panasonic AG DVX100 camera capable of 60 frames per second, I filmed 283 shots over 6 days. The results indicate that by measuring vapor trail deviation over a known distance, wind speed can be calculated within 3 miles per hour of actual conditions. Dr. Williams looks up for the first time. Within 3 miles per hour. Yes, sir. Based on what reference? How did you verify your calculations? Mitchell pulls out a sheet of paper covered in numbers. I cross-referenced my measurements with data from a handheld anemometer placed at 50-yard intervals downrange. The correlation coefficient was 0.87. Williams takes the paper, studies it. His expression doesn't change. You understand that vapor trails are caused by condensation of atmospheric moisture around the shock wave created by a supersonic projectile. Yes, sir. And that this condensation is highly variable depending on temperature, humidity, and altitude. Yes, sir. And that the trail itself dissipates in less than 1 second, making accurate measurement nearly impossible. It's difficult, sir, but not impossible. Williams sets down the paper. Corporal, I spent 3 years researching this exact problem. I had a team of 6 engineers, a budget of $2.3 million, and access to high-speed cameras that cost more than your car. We concluded that real-time downrange wind measurement using vapor trail analysis was not feasible for field deployment. You're telling me you've solved this in 2 weeks with a pawn shop camera? The room is silent. Every eye is on Mitchell. No, sir, Mitchell says quietly. I'm not telling you I've solved it. I'm telling you I've proven it's possible. There's a difference. Williams's eyes narrow. Show me. Mitchell sets up the camera, connects it to a television in the corner. He plays the footage shot after shot, vapor trail after vapor trail. He explains the measurements, the calculations, the methodology. The officers watch in silence. When the footage ends, Major Hughes asks, "What's your error rate?" At 600 meters plus or minus 2.3 miles per hour, at 800 meters plus or minus 3.1. That's not accurate enough for combat conditions, one of the other officers says. It's more accurate than visual mirage reading, sir. Current doctrine produces errors of 5 to 10 miles per hour at those ranges. Williams stands, walks to the television. He rewinds the footage, plays it again, freezes on a single frame, showing a faint vapor trail. He stares at it for a long moment. The angle is wrong, he says. Mitchell's stomach drops. Sir, your camera angle. You're filming perpendicular to the trajectory. That's why your measurements are inconsistent. You need to film at a 23-degree offset to account for the parallax distortion created by... Williams stops, looks at Mitchell. You don't know what parallax distortion is, do you? No, sir. Williams almost smiles. Of course you don't, because you're not an engineer. You're a sniper who got lucky with a camera. The words sting. But before Mitchell can respond, Williams continues. The thing is, Corporal luck doesn't invalidate results. You've shown something I said was impossible. Your methodology is crude, your equipment is inadequate, and your mathematical understanding is barely high school level. But the core concept... He taps the frozen image on the screen. The core concept is sound. Mitchell's breath catches. Sir. Williams turns to Colonel Rains. I want to run controlled tests. Proper equipment, calibrated cameras, multiple ranges and conditions. If this holds up under rigorous analysis, we need to develop it into a field-deployable system immediately. Rains nods slowly. How long? 3 months for initial validation, 6 months for a working prototype, maybe a year for full deployment. We don't have a year. Fallujah's coming. We need every advantage we can get. Then we work fast. Williams looks back at Mitchell. Can you take orders from a civilian scientist, Corporal? Sir. I'm going to need someone who understands how this works in combat, someone who can bridge the gap between lab testing and field application, someone who gives enough of a damn to spend his leave filming bullets in a gravel pit. Williams extends his hand. Welcome to the team. Mitchell shakes his hand. His throat is too tight to speak. Colonel Rains stands. Gentlemen, let's be clear about something. This project is now classified. Nothing discussed here leaves this room. Mitchell, you're temporarily assigned to the warfighting lab effective immediately. You'll work with Dr. Williams to refine this system. No communication with your unit except through official channels. Questions? No, sir? Good. Dismissed. The officers file out. Mitchell stands alone in the conference room, staring at the frozen image on the television, a faint white line curving through empty air. His hands are shaking again. Ortega calls that night. Well, they're building it. What? They're actually building it. Williams wants to develop it into a real system. They're assigning me to the project. Ortega is silent for a moment. Then he laughs, a genuine disbelieving laugh. You crazy son of a bitch, you actually did it. Mitchell sits on his bunk in the transient barracks at Quantico. Through the window, he can see the lights of the base, the flag flying in the evening breeze. Somewhere out there, Marines are training for missions where they'll need to take shots at ranges where wind turns precision into gambling. But maybe, just maybe, that's about to change. I haven't done anything yet, Mitchell says. Williams said 3 months just for testing. We're not even close to Mitchell. Ortega's voice is serious now. 4 months ago, you missed a shot. 4 Marines died. You could have blamed the wind, blamed the chaos, blamed the impossible nature of the problem. Instead, you spent your leave building something out of duct tape and desperation. And now the Marine Corps is actually listening. You know what that is? What? That's how revolutions start. Not with generals or PhDs. With corporals who refuse to accept that impossible means anything except not yet. Mitchell closes his eyes. He sees Chen's face, Williams's legs, the rooftop in Ramadi, where everything changed. The ghosts are still there. They always will be. But for the first time since March 19, 2004, they feel a little less heavy, because the wind can be measured. And if the wind can be measured, Marines can hit their targets. And if Marines can hit their targets, fewer people die. It's not redemption. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it's a start. The laboratory at Quantico smells like solder and coffee. Mitchell arrives at 0600 on June 15, 2004, carrying his field notebook and the camera that started everything. Dr. Robert Williams is already there, surrounded by equipment that looks like it belongs in a science fiction movie. High-speed cameras mounted on precision gimbals, laser rangefinders connected to laptop computers, ballistic gelatin blocks lined up on tables like body parts waiting for autopsy. You're late, Williams says without looking up from a computer screen filled with scrolling numbers. Mitchell checks his watch. Sir, you said report at 0600. It's 0558. If you're not early, you're late. Rule number 1. Williams finally looks at him. Rule number 2, stop calling me sir. I'm not military. Call me Williams or doctor or hey asshole, I don't care. But sir makes me feel like I should be wearing a uniform, and I spent 4 years in grad school specifically to avoid that. Yes, says. Mitchell catches himself. Understood. Williams almost smiles. Better. Now come look at this. He pulls up footage on the computer, Mitchell's original gravel pit recordings, but digitally enhanced. The vapor trails are sharper, clearer, each frame time-stamped and annotated with velocity data, trajectory angles, atmospheric conditions. Your camera captured 30 frames per second, Williams explains, which means each frame represents 0.033 seconds. A 7.62 millimeter round travels approximately 780 meters per second, so in each frame, your bullet moved 26 meters. That's a huge gap. We're not actually seeing the bullet, we're seeing a ghost, a trace of where it was. Can we film faster? We can. I've got a Phantom V7.3 that shoots 10,000 frames per second. Cost the Marine Corps $90,000. At that speed, we can track individual bullets frame by frame, measure deviation to millimeter accuracy. Mitchell stares at the camera, sleek black covered in buttons, and displays he doesn't understand. Why didn't you use that before, when you were researching this? Williams is quiet for a moment. Because I was looking at the problem wrong. I was trying to measure wind directly, put sensors downrange, build predictive models, create real-time atmospheric mapping systems. I never thought to just watch what the bullet does. He looks at Mitchell. Sometimes the simplest answer is the hardest one to see, especially when you're too smart for your own good. Over the next 6 weeks, they run 1,847 test shots. They film in rainfog, heat, cold. They test different ammunition types, different rifles, different ranges. They discover that vapor trails are most visible between 60 and 85% humidity. They learn that crosswinds create predictable curve patterns, while quartering winds create complex spirals. They develop algorithms to calculate wind speed from trail deviation, factoring in bullet velocity, air density, and Coriolis effect. Major Karen Hughes from the Warfighting Lab visits on July 23rd. She watches Williams and Mitchell work in the controlled environment of the indoor range, a 300-meter tunnel with climate control and sensor arrays measuring every variable. Mitchell fires. The Phantom camera captures the bullet in flight, the vapor trail unwinding behind it like a white ribbon. Williams analyzes the footage on his laptop. Wind speed 7.3 miles per hour, quartering from left to right at 45 degrees. Williams announces. Hughes checks the anemometer readings. Actual wind 7.1 miles per hour, 47 degrees. Difference 0.2 miles per hour. She turns to Williams. That's incredible. That's science, Williams replies. Repeatable, measurable, predictable. We've run over 1,800 shots. Average error rate is 0.3 miles per hour within 800 meters. 0.3. Hughes's voice is skeptical. In a controlled environment, what about combat? That's the problem. Williams pulls up a series of images on his laptop, the Phantom camera, the laptop computers, the calibration equipment. This setup weighs 67 pounds, requires AC power, and takes 15 minutes to calibrate. It's a laboratory system, not a field weapon. So what do we do? Williams looks at Mitchell. We miniaturize, we ruggedize, we simplify. And we do it in 8 weeks because that's when 2nd Battalion 1st Marines deploys to Fallujah. The next phase nearly breaks them both. Mitchell works 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Williams brings in engineers from Raytheon and Leupold and Stevens. They strip away everything non-essential. The laptop computers become a hardened military-grade processor the size of a paperback book. The Phantom camera becomes a custom ballistic camera with a reinforced housing and shock-absorbing mounts. The 15-minute calibration becomes a 2-minute startup sequence. On September 3, 2004, they have a prototype. It's mounted on a Remington M24 sniper rifle, a scope-sized unit that sits above the barrel integrated with a laser rangefinder and a small display screen showing wind speed and direction. They call it the VT-1 Vapor Trail System Mark I. Mitchell carries it to the outdoor range. His hands shake not from fear, but from exhaustion and anticipation. 800 meters downrange a target waits. The wind blows at 12 miles per hour, gusting to 15. The kind of wind that turns long-range shooting into prayer. Whenever you're ready, Williams says. Mitchell activates the system. The camera powers up, the processor runs through its diagnostic checks. On the display numbers flash range, elevation, atmospheric pressure. He fires a ranging shot. The VT-1 captures the vapor trail, analyzes it, calculates wind. 12.4 miles per hour left to right, the display reads. Mitchell adjusts his scope, aims, fires. The bullet hits 3 inches left of center. Fuck, he breathes. Fire again, Williams says. Let the system refine. Mitchell chambers another round, fires. The VT-1 processes the new data, updates its calculations. 13.1 miles per hour. Third shot, 2 inches right of center. Fourth shot, 1 inch right. Fifth shot, dead center. Williams pumps his fist. That's it. That's the system learning. Each shot teaches it about local conditions, microclimate variations, thermal layers. By the 5th shot, it knows that specific piece of air better than any anemometer. But Major Hughes isn't smiling. 5 shots is too many. In combat, you might only get 1. I know. Williams runs his hand through his hair. We're working on it. The more we train the algorithm, the faster it learns. But there's a fundamental limitation. Every piece of air is different. The system needs data to adapt. Then get more data. Because in 6 weeks this thing deploys to Fallujah, And if it doesn't work, Marines die. The pressure nearly crushes Mitchell. Every night he dreams about Ramadi, about Chen and Williams and Hayes and Torres, about the shot that missed. In his dreams, he's standing in the conference room at Quantico and Dr. Williams is saying, "You were wrong. It doesn't work. And now more Marines are dead because you gave them false hope." He wakes up at 0300, drenched in sweat, and goes back to the lab. On September 29th, Williams finds him asleep at his workstation, his face pressed against a keyboard, drool pooling on the spacebar. "Mitchell. Hey, Mitchell." Mitchell jerks awake. "What? I'm awake. You need to sleep. Real sleep. In a bed." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running on fumes and guilt." Williams sits down beside him. "I know what you're doing. You think if you work hard enough, if you make this system perfect enough, it'll erase what happened in Ramadi. It won't." Mitchell's jaw tightens. "I know that. Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're trying to save 4 dead Marines by killing yourself. That's not heroism. That's suicide with extra steps." "What do you want me to do?" "Take a day off. Go to the beach. 4 guys are dead because I missed a shot, and in 3 weeks other Marines are going to Fallujah with a system I built. If it fails, if even one shot misses, because the algorithm isn't good enough, that's on me." "No," Williams says firmly. "That's on the wind. That's on the chaos of combat. That's on the fact that we're asking 20-year-olds to make split-second decisions at 800 meters while people are shooting at them. You didn't invent wind, Mitchell. You're just trying to measure it. And you've done something I couldn't do with a team of engineers and millions of dollars. You proved it was possible. That's enough." "It's not enough. It won't be enough until—" Mitchell stops, his voice breaking. "Until what? Until nobody ever misses. Until war becomes clean and precise, and nobody dies." Williams leans forward. "That's never going to happen. War is chaos. The best we can do is reduce the chaos a little bit. And that's what this system does. It doesn't guarantee hits. It improves odds. From 34% to maybe 60, maybe 70. That's hundreds of lives saved, maybe thousands. And you did that. You, not me. You." Mitchell stares at his hands. They're shaking again. I keep seeing his face. Chen's. All of them. Chen. Williams. Every time I close my eyes, they're there. And they're asking me why I missed, why I didn't do better, why they're dead and I'm alive. Williams is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone. In 1998, I was working on a mine-clearing robot for the Army. We deployed 6 prototypes to Kosovo. I'd run 10,000 simulations. The system was perfect, except it wasn't. A faulty pressure sensor caused one robot to detonate a mine prematurely. 3 sappers died. They were clearing a school. The school was full of kids waiting to come back." Mitchell looks at him. "I spent 2 years trying to fix that sensor," Williams continues. 2 years punishing myself, working 100-hour weeks, refusing to accept that sometimes, despite our best efforts, the chaos wins. You know what I finally learned? Guilt doesn't bring anyone back, but it can motivate you to save the next person, and the person after that, and the person after that." He stands. "So go to sleep, Mitchell. Get 8 hours, eat a real meal, and then come back here and help me finish what we started. Not because it'll save Chen, but because it might save the next Marine who takes a shot in the wind." Mitchell sleeps for the first time in 3 days. On October 18, 2004, the VT-1 system deploys to Iraq with 2nd Battalion 1st Marines. 12 units total, distributed among sniper teams preparing for the Second Battle of Fallujah. Mitchell isn't allowed to go. He's too valuable to the development program, too necessary for training other units. Instead, he sits in the lab at Quantico, waiting for reports. The first one arrives on November 9, 2004, from Sergeant Carlos Ruiz, operating in the Jolan district of Fallujah. The report is brief clinical, VT-1 operational at 0645. Target identified at 723 meters hostile with RPG. Wind reading 14.2 mph quartering left. First shot hit center mass. Target neutralized. System performed as expected. Williams reads it aloud in the lab. Mitchell listens, his throat tight. One shot, Williams says quietly. One target, one Marine who doesn't have to wonder if he missed. More reports come in over the next 3 weeks. Sergeant Marcus Webb, 8 shots, 7 hits, at ranges exceeding 800 meters. Corporal James Hernandez, 9 shots, 8 hits, including a 1 meter shot that previous doctrine would have called impossible. Lance Corporal Sarah Chen. No relation to David Chen from Ramadi, but the name still makes Mitchell's stomach clench. 12 shots, 11 hits, 0 friendly casualties in her sector. The data is undeniable. Hit rates with the VT-1 system average 71% at ranges over 800 meters. Without it, the historical average is 34%. The system has more than doubled sniper effectiveness. On December 3rd, Major Hughes walks into the lab carrying a bottle of bourbon and 3 glasses. "Gentlemen, I have news." Williams looks up from his computer. "Good or bad?" "Good. Very good. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has authorized full-scale production of the VT-1 system. 200 units by March 2005, with priority distribution to all Marine Corps sniper teams. Congress is allocating $7 million for development of VT-2, which will include improved processing and extended range capability. She pours 3 glasses, hands them out. The official letter commends Corporal James Mitchell for innovation, dedication, and technical achievement resulting in measurably improved combat effectiveness and reduced casualties. Mitchell takes the glass but doesn't drink. "What about sniper fatalities since Fallujah?" Hughes's expression softens. "0. For the first time since the invasion, we've had 0 sniper fatalities in active combat operations. The system gives our people enough advantage that they can engage and disengage without getting pinned down. 0 fatalities." Mitchell tries to process that. Tries to feel something other than the hollow ache that's lived in his chest since March 19, 2004. 0 means no more Chens, no more Williams, no more names added to the list of people who died because wind is invisible and chaotic and impossible to measure. Except it's not impossible, not anymore. Williams raises his glass. To the corporal who refused to accept impossible. They drink. The bourbon burns. Mitchell sets down his glass and walks to the window. Outside, Marines run formation in the cold Virginia rain, training for missions where some of them won't come back. That's the nature of war. But maybe a few more will come back now. A few more who would have died because of wind, because of chaos, because of shots that drift 3 feet wide. "You okay?" Williams asks. Mitchell turns. "I keep waiting to feel different, like this fixed something. But I still see their faces." "You always will. That doesn't go away." Williams joins him at the window. "But here's what I think. I think Chen and Williams and Hayes and Torres, I think they'd want you to be here, doing this. Making sure their deaths meant something. And they did mean something. Because you turned tragedy into innovation. You turned 4 deaths into 0 deaths. That's not redemption, but it's close." Mitchell nods slowly. The rain keeps falling. Marines keep training. The war continues, indifferent and eternal. But somewhere in Fallujah, a Marine sniper is lining up a shot. The wind is blowing, and for the first time in the history of modern warfare, that Marine knows exactly how fast, exactly which direction, exactly how much to compensate. The shot hits. The Marine lives, and 4 ghosts from a rooftop in Ramadi rest just a little bit easier. Because their deaths weren't meaningless. They were the price of progress, the cost of innovation, the sacrifice that proved some problems, no matter how impossible they seem, can be solved by one person who cares enough to try. Mitchell doesn't smile. He's not sure he remembers how. But for the first time since that terrible day in March, he feels something other than guilt. He feels purpose. And in the mathematics of war, where every equation balances death against survival, purpose is the variable that changes everything. The war doesn't end. It never really ends for the people who fight it. But on March 15, 2009, Corporal James Mitchell's war with the Marine Corps finally does. He stands in the processing center at Camp Pendleton, signing discharge papers that transform him from a Marine into a veteran in the time it takes to write his name. 5 years, 3 deployments, 1 Navy Cross for actions in Ramadi that he's never talked about and never will. The medal sits in a box in his father's garage next to the original field notebook filled with desperate calculations and the pawn shop camera that started everything. "What are you going to do now?" the admin clerk asks as she stamps his DD-214. Mitchell hasn't thought about it. For 5 years he's had orders, missions, purpose. Now he has nothing except a severance check and the option to re-enlist, which he's declined 3 times. "Don't know," he says. "Maybe go home, help my dad with his business." "Air conditioning, right? That's what your file says." "Yeah, air conditioning." The clerk smiles. "From saving lives to fixing ACs. Hell of a career change." Mitchell doesn't correct her, doesn't tell her that in his mind, they're the same thing, understanding invisible forces, measuring what can't be seen, making systems work that everyone else has given up on. Wind is wind, whether it's pushing bullets or cooling houses. He drives away from Camp Pendleton in a used Ford pickup he bought for $3,000. The VT-1 system he helped create is now standard issue for every Marine Corps sniper. The VT-2, developed over 3 years with input from 6 different engineering firms, can measure wind at ranges up to 1,200 meters with accuracy within 1 mile per hour. The military-industrial complex has transformed his pawn shop camera into a multi-million-dollar program. But Mitchell isn't part of it anymore. Dr. Williams offered him a civilian position. "You could make 6 figures consulting," Williams said. "Defense contractors would line up to hire you." Mitchell declined. He's done with war, done with systems designed to help people kill more efficiently, even if those systems also keep them alive. He's just done. Tennessee in March is cold and wet. Mitchell pulls into his father's driveway at 1800 hours. He still thinks in military time, probably always will. Robert Mitchell stands in the doorway of the shop, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're home." "Yeah." "For good this time?" "Yeah." They stand there for a moment, neither speaking. Then Robert nods toward the shop. "Got 3 service calls tomorrow. Could use a hand if you're not busy." "I'm not busy." "Good. Your mother's making dinner. Pot roast." "She always makes pot roast." "Yeah, she does." They go inside. The work is simple, repetitive, mindless. Compressor replacements, refrigerant recharges, thermostat calibrations. Mitchell loses himself in it, grateful for problems that have clear solutions and no moral weight. An AC unit either works or it doesn't. Nobody dies if you miscalculate the pressure in a copper line. Weeks pass. Then months. Mitchell doesn't talk about Iraq. Doesn't mention the VT-1 system or the Navy Cross or the 4 Marines whose names he still whispers before he falls asleep. His parents don't ask. The town doesn't know. He's just Robert Mitchell's son, home from the service fixing air conditioners like his grandfather did, and his father does, and maybe someday his own kids will. On July 8, 2009, a letter arrives. Official Marine Corps letterhead forwarded through 3 different addresses before finding him. Mitchell almost throws it away without opening it, but something makes him read it. It's from Sergeant Carlos Ruiz, the first sniper to use the VT-1 system in combat. The handwriting is precise, almost mechanical. "Corporal Mitchell, you don't know me, but I know you. I was in Fallujah in November 2004. I used your system. It saved my life at least 3 times that I know of, probably more that I don't. I just wanted to say thank you. And I wanted you to know that every Marine sniper I've ever met, and I've met a lot, knows your name. They know what you did. Some of them are alive because of it. I'm writing this because I think you should know that. I think you should know your story didn't end in Ramadi. It started there, and it's still going. Semper Fi Sergeant Carlos Ruiz, USMC. Mitchell reads the letter 3 times, then folds it, puts it in his wallet, and goes back to work. More letters come. Lance Corporal Sarah Chen writes about a shot she made at 1021 meters in Helmand Province that would have been impossible without the system. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb sends a photo of himself and his team in Afghanistan holding up a VT-2 unit like a trophy. At the bottom of the photo, someone has written, "The wind can't hide anymore." Mitchell keeps the letters in a box under his bed. He doesn't frame them, doesn't show them to anyone. But he reads them when the nightmares get bad, when Chen's face becomes too clear, when the weight of March 19, 2004 threatens to crush him. On November 10, 2010, the Marine Corps' 235th birthday, Mitchell's phone rings. Unknown number. "Hello. Is this James Mitchell?" "Yeah. Who's this?" "My name is Colonel David Rains. We met at Quantico in 2004. Do you remember?" Mitchell remembers. Rains was the colonel who sat at the head of the conference table who gave him 30 minutes to prove he wasn't crazy. "Yes, sir. I remember." "Good. I'm calling because the Marine Corps is establishing a new award, the Innovation in Combat Award. It's for Marines who develop field solutions that significantly impact combat effectiveness. You're the first recipient. The ceremony is at Quantico on December 15th. I'd like you to attend." "Sir, I appreciate that, but I'm not asking, son. I'm telling you. You're going to be there, because there are 300 Marine snipers who will be there, and they want to meet the man who changed their profession. And more importantly, there are families. Families of Marines who came home because they didn't miss their shots, who want to shake your hand." Mitchell's throat tightens. "Sir, I don't deserve—" "Yes, you do. You took a tragedy and turned it into innovation. You took guilt and turned it into purpose. That's what Marines do. We adapt. We overcome. And sometimes, rarely, but sometimes we revolutionize. You did that. So you're going to put on your dress blues pin on that Navy Cross you've never worn, and you're going to accept this award. Clear?" "Yes, sir." "Good. See you December 15th. The ceremony is held in the same building where Mitchell was almost laughed out of the Marine Corps 6 years earlier. But now the room is filled with people. Snipers, officers, families, journalists. Dr. Robert Williams is there, grayer, but still sharp-eyed. Danny Ortega flies in from California. Mitchell's parents sit in the front row, his mother crying before anything even happens. Colonel Rains, now a brigadier general, gives a speech about innovation, about how progress in the military rarely comes from the top down. It comes from young Marines who see a problem and refuse to accept that it can't be solved. It comes from corporals with pawnshop cameras and notebooks full of impossible ideas. It comes from people like James Mitchell. Mitchell walks to the podium. The room applauds. He stands there uncomfortable in his dress blues, staring at 300 faces he doesn't know. "I don't have a speech prepared," he says. His voice sounds too loud in the silent room. "I'm not good at this, but I want to tell you about 4 Marines." He tells them about Chen, about Williams, about Hayes and Torres, about March 19, 2004, and the shot that missed, and the mortars that fell, and the guilt that drove him to spend his leave filming bullets in a Tennessee gravel pit. "I didn't build the VT-1 to be a hero," Mitchell says. "I built it because I couldn't sleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. And I knew that somewhere in Iraq, another Marine was about to take another shot in the wind. And I couldn't live with the idea that he might miss, that more people might die, because we were still guessing at something bullets fly through every single day." He pauses. The room is absolutely silent. "So I want to be clear about something. This award, this system, none of it brings back the 4 Marines who died in Ramadi. Nothing brings them back. But what it does, what I hope it does, is mean they didn't die for nothing. That their deaths became the catalyst for something that saves other lives. That's not redemption. I don't think I'll ever feel redeemed. But it's purpose. And purpose is enough. He steps away from the podium. The applause is deafening. Afterward, Marines line up to shake his hand. A staff sergeant tells him about a shot he made in Sangin that wouldn't have been possible without the VT-2. A lance corporal, barely 20 years old, says, "My instructor at sniper school told us about you. He said you proved that impossible just means nobody's tried hard enough yet." A woman approaches late 30s with kind eyes and a sad smile. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Lisa Chen. I was engaged to Corporal David Chen." Mitchell's world stops. I'm so sorry. Stop. She touches his arm gently. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came here to say thank you. For what I'm the reason You're the reason his death meant something. David used to write me letters about you, about how dedicated you were, how you cared about every shot, every mission. He respected you, and after he died, I was so angry. Angry at the war, at the Marines, at God. But then I learned what you did, how you turned tragedy into innovation, how you made sure other Marines didn't die the same way, and I realized that's what David would have wanted. He wouldn't want his death to be meaningless. He'd want it to save lives." She pulls out a photo David Chen in dress blues, smiling alive. "Keep this. Remember him. But don't let guilt destroy you. He wouldn't want that either." Mitchell takes the photo. His hands shake. "I think about him every day." "Good. So do I. But I also think about the Marines who are alive because of what you built. That matters. It has to matter. Otherwise, what was it all for?" That night, Mitchell sits in his hotel room staring at David Chen's photo. The young face frozen in time. Dead at 22 because of wind and chaos, and a bullet that drifted 3 feet wide. But also the catalyst. The reason Mitchell couldn't sleep. The ghost that drove him to prove the impossible was possible. Mitchell pulls out his field notebook, the original one now worn and stained. He flips through pages of desperate calculations, rough sketches, ideas that seemed insane at the time. On the last page he writes, "March 19th, 2004, December 15th, 2010. From one shot that missed to a system that never misses. For Chen Williams, Hayes, and Torres. Your deaths weren't meaningless. I made sure of that. Rest easy." He closes the notebook, puts it in his bag. Tomorrow he'll go home to Tennessee, back to fixing air conditioners and living a quiet life. But tonight, for the first time since Ramadi, the ghosts feel less heavy. The years pass. The VT-2 becomes the WTS wind tracking system. Mitchell's innovation spreads beyond the Marine Corps to every Allied military. The British SAS adopts it. The Canadian JTF-2. The Australian SASR. By 2015, hit rates at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters have tripled worldwide. Sniper fatalities drop to historical lows. The invisible wind, once the deadliest enemy of precision, becomes measurable, predictable, manageable. Mitchell watches from Tennessee. He doesn't consult, doesn't lecture, doesn't write books or give interviews. He fixes air conditioners. He marries a woman named Sarah who teaches 4th grade and doesn't ask about the war. They have 2 kids. He coaches Little League. He's just a guy. But every November 10, on the Marine Corps birthday, his phone rings. Former snipers calling to say thank you. Young Marines who've heard the story and want to meet the legend. Officers writing dissertations on innovation in combat. Mitchell talks to them all, brief and uncomfortable, then goes back to his life. On March 19, 2024, 20 years exactly since the shot that changed everything, Mitchell drives to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico. There's an exhibit now. Innovation under fire, the development of modern wind measurement systems. His original pawnshop camera sits in a glass case next to the field notebook and a VT-1 prototype. A plaque reads, Corporal James Mitchell, USMC, refused to accept that wind was unmeasurable. His innovation, born from tragedy, has saved countless lives and revolutionized long-range marksmanship. His story proves that the future of warfare often begins not in a laboratory, but in the determined heart of a single Marine who refused to quit. Mitchell stands in front of the exhibit for a long time. Tourists pass reading plaques, taking photos. None of them know he's the man in the faded pictures, younger and haunted and desperate. An old man stops beside him, 80s, wearing a Marine's cap and leaning on a cane. "You military?" the old man asks. "Was. Long time ago." "What do you think of this?" He gestures at the exhibit. Mitchell considers the question. "I think one man saw a problem and couldn't live with the answer everyone was giving him. So he tried something impossible, and it worked." "You know him, this Mitchell guy?" "Yeah, I know him." "He's still around?" Mitchell almost smiles. "Yeah, he fixes air conditioners in Tennessee." The old man laughs. "From changing war to changing filters, hell of a retirement." "Yeah, hell of a retirement." Mitchell leaves the museum. Outside, the wind blows across the parking lot. He holds up his hand, feels the current, estimates the speed without thinking. 5 miles per hour, quartering from the northwest. Once that knowledge meant life or death. Now it means nothing, except that old habits die hard. He drives home. Sarah is making dinner. His daughter is doing homework. His son is building something with Legos, some kind of robot, clumsy and ambitious, and held together with determination. "Dad," his son asks, "can you help me? It keeps falling apart." Mitchell sits down beside him, looks at the half-built robot, the pieces scattered across the floor. "What are you trying to build?" "A robot that can see wind, like in that video game." Mitchell's throat tightens. "Why wind?" "Because it's invisible, and invisible things are cool. Can you help?" Mitchell picks up a Lego piece. "Yeah, I can help. But first let me tell you about 4 Marines." His son looks up confused. "Marines?" "Yeah, 4 Marines who died a long time ago. And how sometimes the things we can't see, the invisible things, they're the most important to understand." He starts building. His hands remember the work, problem-solving, adaptation, taking something impossible and making it real. His son watches, asking questions, learning. And somewhere in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever Marines are fighting today, a sniper lines up a shot. The wind blows. The system measures. The bullet flies true. The Marine lives. And 4 ghosts from a rooftop in Ramadi, Chen and Williams and Hayes and Torres rest easy. Because their deaths weren't meaningless. They were the price of progress, the cost of innovation. The sacrifice that taught one corporal that impossible just means nobody's tried hard enough yet. From one rooftop to every battlefield on Earth, James Mitchell proved that even the wind can be measured if someone refuses to accept that it can't be. The system he built from guilt and desperation and a pawnshop camera has saved thousands of lives. Maybe tens of thousands. The exact number will never be known because you can't count the people who lived instead of dying, who came home instead of becoming names on a memorial wall. But they're out there, living their lives, raising their kids, growing old. All because one man refused to sleep until he solved a problem everyone said was unsolvable. That's not redemption. Mitchell still sees Chen's face, still counts the seconds between the shot and the mortars, still carries March 19, 2004 like a stone in his chest. But it's legacy. And in the mathematics of war, where every life saved is a small victory against chaos, legacy is everything. The wind still blows, but it can't hide anymore. And the Marines who fight in it, the ones who take impossible shots at impossible ranges, they go home to their families instead of coming home in boxes. Because one corporal refused to quit. Because 4 Marines died. Because tragedy became innovation, and innovation became salvation. The invisible made visible. The impossible made real. The wind finally measured. And somewhere in Tennessee, in a small repair shop on Route 11, a middle-aged man fixes air conditioners and doesn't talk about the war and carries 4 names in his heart like prayers. Chen, Williams, Hayes, Torres. Their deaths built the system, but their memory keeps it alive. And that is how one corporal's mad idea made sniper rifles never miss in wind. Not through genius, through grief, through the refusal to let 4 good men die for nothing, through love disguised as science, wrapped in determination, and delivered to the world in the form of a pawnshop camera and a notebook full of impossible dreams. If you believe their names should be remembered, share this story. Write their names in the comments. Let the world know that Chen and Williams and Hayes and Torres didn't just die